You know, when you hear the name Anne Frank, your mind probably goes straight to tragedy, and for good reason. But what if we looked past the symbol for a minute to find the actual person? Today, we're going to do just that. We're exploring the sharp, funny, and incredibly resilient girl behind the diary, all through a fantastic story she tells in her own words. So let's kick things off with something that might just surprise you. Then I would maybe have a chance to come to Hollywood. Yep, that's Anne Frank. It's such a powerful little reminder that before she became this immense historical figure, she was a teenager with big, ambitious dreams and a pretty great sense of humor. So, who was the girl behind the diary? Let's peel back the layers, move past the name and the history books, and really get to know the person. Her full name was Annalise Marie Frank. And yeah, the book, The Diary of a Young Girl, is what made her famous around the world. But it's the incredible voice inside those pages that just grabs you, even all these years later. To really get her story, you have to understand the world she was born into. She was born in Germany in 1929. But as the Nazis rose to power, her family had to flee to Amsterdam. Then, in July 1942, they had no choice left but to go into hiding. After 2 long years, they were discovered. And tragically, Anne died in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp just a few weeks before the war finally ended. All right, section 2, a friend named Kitty. So, why did she even start writing in the first place? Well, this decision would actually lead to the most important relationship she had during her time in hiding. Now, you might think, oh, she must have been a loner, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. She had loving parents, an older sister, and by her own count, about 30 people she called friends. So, with all those people around her, why turn to a diary? She explains it perfectly with this one amazing line. Paper has more patience than people. For Anne, that diary was a space where she could say anything, completely free of judgment. It could handle all her deepest, most complicated thoughts in a way she felt no person really could. She wrote that, she had fun with her friends, but their talks never got past ordinary, everyday things. She was really longing for a true confidant, someone she could share everything with. And since she felt like she couldn't find one, she decided to create one. And that's the key, right? She wasn't just writing in a diary. She was writing to a friend. She gave her diary a name, Kitty, and turned a simple notebook into the loyal, patient friend she'd always wanted. Okay, next up, life before the annex. To really appreciate the story we're about to dive into, it helps to get a quick snapshot of what her life was like before they went into hiding. I mean, in so many ways, it was a completely normal childhood. Moving to a new country, going to school, having that one teacher, her headmistress, Mrs. Scoopurus, that she was really attached to, and just deeply loving her family, especially her grandmother. And it's that very normalcy that makes everything that happened next so unbelievably heartbreaking. All right, now for the story I've been so excited to tell you. It is the perfect example of Anne's incredible wit, all wrapped up in a battle against a very grumpy teacher. Welcome to the Chatterbox Challenge. So, meet Mr. Keesing. In her diary, Anne calls him an old fogey who taught maths. And there was one thing that drove him absolutely crazy. She talked, constantly, in his class. He was not a fan. So after a bunch of warnings, Mr. Keesing finally lands on a punishment. He decides to start giving her extra homework, and specifically a series of essays, each one about her crime of talking too much. And you can just feel his frustration growing with each assignment, right? First up, an essay on a chatterbox. When that doesn't stop her, he escalates to an incorrigible chatterbox. Finally, after she still keeps talking, he gives her this ridiculous ultimate topic. Quack, 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 said Mistress Chatterbox. Now, this was obviously meant to embarrass her into silence. She knew Mr. Keesing was trying to make a joke at her expense. But Anne, oh no, she was not about to let that happen. As she put it, I'd make sure the joke was on him. So what was her brilliant plan? She decided to do something he would never, ever expect. Her friend San was pretty good at poetry, so together they decided to write the entire essay in verse. I mean, what an ingenious move. And the poem itself was a little masterpiece of satire. It told this tragic tale of a mother duck and a father swan who had 3 baby ducklings. And those ducklings were bitten to death by their own father. And why? Because they quacked too much. It was a hilarious and very pointed message aimed squarely at Mr. Keesing. So, Section 5, A Voice That Endures. How did this clever classroom joke actually land? And what does this little victory tell us about the voice that would one day echo across the entire world?
Oh, it landed perfectly. Mr. Keesing didn't just get the joke, he absolutely loved it. He read the poem out loud to Anne's class and then to a bunch of other classes too. From that day on, she was allowed to talk, and he was always making jokes right there with her. She had totally, completely won.
This story just shows you the two sides of Anne so perfectly. On one hand, you see the witty, resilient schoolgirl who was clever enough to outsmart her teacher. But you also get a glimpse of the mature, insightful writer she was becoming, the one who would go on to document life in the annex with such incredible depth. It is that voice, filled with everything, humor, hope, fear, and just incredible insight, that has connected with millions of people. It's why her diary has been translated into dozens and dozens of languages, and why it remains one of the most important books ever written. And that brings us to this final question. How does one girl's cleverness in a classroom reveal such a profound tragedy? Because this small, charming story, it's about so much more than a poem. It's this heartbreaking reminder of the immeasurable loss, not just of lives, but of the creativity, the humor, the potential of millions of individual voices that were silenced forever. It makes you wonder, what other poems, what other brilliant jokes, what other incredible stories did the world never get the chance to hear?